There's a difference between an opening statement and a final submission. Because what I've just heard from the last bit of the county assembly, those are final submissions. So let's hear your opening statement, not your final submission.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and members of the Senate. When we come down to cross-examining the witnesses that have been that will be called by the county assembly, and when we call our witnesses, you will be surprised at how far the person they are describing is from what they have described him. You will be surprised at how exaggerated the adjectives they have used are. You will realize that the Deputy Governor is indeed a man of integrity, a Christian, and a man of conscience. I would like to address the 5 counts. I know there is repeated contention that there are 4, but there are 5. The first one is whether or not he took a bribe from one Dennis Misati. The second one is whether he gave a bribe to one Lucy Wahito. The third one is whether he threatened one Dennis Misati. The fourth one is whether he misused the staff of the county assembly. And the fifth one is whether he misused his authority to have his brother arrested. On the first count, members of the Senate, the allegation is basically this, that the Deputy Governor received a sum of, in some paragraphs of their claim, they say he received 799,000 shillings. In others, they say he received 800. And that 800,000 was meant to be a bribe to enable Dennis get a job. Our case will be this, and in the introductory part of the introduction of the said Dennis, he is described as a 37-year-old gentleman. Our case will be this, that the sum of 800,000 was received by the Deputy Governor. However, that amount was a refund of money he had lent to the father of Dennis. We will be calling the father of Dennis to come and confirm that indeed, number one, he received that money from the Deputy Governor in the period around October, November 2022, and on the 28th of May 2023, when he visited Mr. Monda asked him whether he could get back his refund as he was traveling, and the said father of Dennis, that is Joseph Misati, said, yes, I can refund you, I have the funds, and actually gave him the amount. We will show from both M-Pesa accounts and from the bank accounts that indeed the money emanated and came from the accounts of Mr. and Mrs. Misati. Part of our defense team will address you on this, but I just want your attention to be drawn to this first point immediately in our response to the first count, that you will be subjected to the spectacle where a father is saying, this money belongs to me. I was refunding someone, a friend of mine of 32 years, money I had borrowed about 8 or 9 months earlier. You will be subjected to a spectacle where you have to choose whether to believe the father or to believe the son. You will be subjected to a situation where you have to determine whether the money actually belongs to the son or it belongs to the father and the mother. You will be subjected to a situation where you would have to determine whether the allegation of having sold a saloon has anything to do with this case, or it was fabricated with the intention of whipping up emotions. On the second count of the alleged giving of bribe, we do not deny that indeed an amount of 100,000 came from the M-Pesa account of the Deputy Governor to the account of Lucy Wahito. We do not deny that. However, we've explained, and we will show you the records, the M-Pesa records, showing that it was a mistake on the part of His Excellency Dr. Monda in the remittance of the amount, and that he had intended to actually remit the amount to somebody who had given him service, one Gladys Aminga, who had given him a transport service. We will show you that the phone records or the phone book recording by the Deputy Governor was such that the names of the two people were next to each other because they are both chief officers in the Kisii County Assembly, and that was just a mistake. Now, it is said that Lucy is eligible to be made a saint because he returned the money and refused to be influenced. We will invite your attention to two details on this issue. The first detail is that by 28th of May, interviews and scoring of the candidates had been done about 13 days earlier, that is on the 15th of May. So that by 28th, really, the person who had successfully contested for that office had been determined by reason of the scores done by the various members of the board. It had nothing, it could not possibly be a basis to have influenced who would be assigned this job. The second issue that we will be addressing on that issue is in the statement that was presented by Lucy at the county assembly. She was very explicit. She said, I received an amount of 100,000. I called the deputy governor and asked him, what is this money for? She says that when I asked the deputy governor that question, he kept quiet. On our part, we are saying that the deputy governor told him, it is a mistake, I meant to send it to Gladys. But just leaving it, we are taking Lucy's statement at its best. Lucy does not say it was meant to influence the decision she was to make or the board was to make for purposes of giving the job. Now, after having appeared before the county assembly and having presented our case, immediately the county assembly, the people sponsoring this motion, went back and did another affidavit. And now Lucy suddenly remembers that indeed there was a very specific statement by His Excellency Dr. Monda saying this money is meant to assist me on unemployment. We just pray, honorable members, that please do give consideration to that change of mind, that this change of mind is caused by the way we conducted our defense at the county assembly and is meant to fill up gaps. And probably to just emphasize that indeed it is a statement made after we had put in our defense and was meant to influence this assembly, this Senate, to think that indeed her earlier statement saying he kept quiet is not necessarily accurate. The third thing I'll be requesting, we will be showing, and we requested that you take into account, is that it is said that Lucy received the money, asked for it to be reversed, and then eventually sent it back when it was not reversed. Now, I pray that you just keep in mind the dates. It is said that the money was received on 28th. Lucy returns the money on 30th, 2 days down the line. We will take you through the M-Pesa and show you that Lucy must have celebrated the receipt of this money. Because if you look at the M-Pesa account, you will see how she immediately utilized that money upon receipt of that money. And so we will be saying the hero they are referring to is not actually a hero. But on our part, our point of emphasis is simply to say this, that it was a mistake, the money was returned, and Dr. Monda was constrained and compelled to look for another money to pay the said Aminga who was meant to have been paid and whose name is next to Lucy. Now, coming to the issue of threats, just probably one more statement on that issue of Lucy. We will be requesting that in fairness to Dr. Monda, we do recall our lives. And remember that from time to time we have made mistakes in sending money to the wrong person when we intended it to be to somebody else. And that mistake cannot be taken away from Dr. Monda merely because he's standing trial. On the issue of threats, Dennis Misati, the son of Joseph Misati, who will be coming to testify, says he was threatened and he relocated with his family. We will be showing that indeed there was no communication between Dr. Monda and the said Dennis Misati. The demand letter he's saying he made, we are not aware of. The late report to EACC, which he says is the basis of that threat, there is no demonstration of that. It's just a mere allegation. And as a matter of rule of law, he has not made any report to anybody that indeed he was threatened to the police. And these allegations are made 8 months down the line. On the allegation of the misuse of staff, we will be demonstrating that indeed, as a deputy governor, he is entitled to be assigned some staff members to help at home. We will be demonstrating that the allegation that these staff members, and I'm surprised that my colleagues, it is not anywhere in the pleading, so I suspect it is my colleagues who have come up with it, saying that these staff were cooking for dogs. I wonder why they had to choose dogs. But our point would be this, that the deputy governor is entitled to staff members. None of those staff members have said anywhere that they have been misused. It is said that these staff members were used to dig a well. And this should be in the period of around 2024, 2023. We will be showing that indeed there has been no well dug at the deputy governor's home in the last almost 10 years, because the well was dug in the year 2003. We will be showing that indeed he doesn't have dairy, and that bit of the allegation that he was using the staff to manage dairy is not true. We will be demonstrating that he doesn't run any farming in Kisii. The land assigned to him is used for purposes of, he has planted trees on the farm, and so he doesn't have any farm which he could deploy the staff to work in. And we will be saying this is a complete falsehood, unfortunately, from his brother. Now, on this point, I just want to hang on 1 minute and invite your attention to this. So, on the first two counts of, or rather the first count of taking a bribe, on the third count of threatening Dennis, you will be having a situation where the father is testifying against his son, or rather the father and the mother testifying against his son. On this count of the alleged misuse of staff, and the next point being the arrest of the brother, you will be having a situation where this Senate is being asked to take the place of the mother of the two brothers and preside and determine their dispute. We are saying that this Senate is being reduced to an unfortunate level by being asked to preside over disputes over families, and a colleague of mine will address you on that. Lastly, on the issue of the arrest of the brothers, we draw your attention to the point that it is Dr. Monda's case that indeed he planted the trees. The trees belong to him. He planted way back in the year 2007. We've called witnesses who were involved in the planting of those trees. The brother came in and started cutting the trees. Dr. Monda did nothing other than to just report to the police and say, my brother is cutting the trees that belong to me. The police did the investigation and determined that indeed, from the face of what they had, it was the brother who was on the wrong in cutting the trees belonging to Dr. Monda and had him arrested. That will be our case. One of the things then you'll be being asked then is whether you want, at this Senate level, to make a choice of believing either the brother, that is Robin, or Dr. Monda Robert. The second one is whether you want to take up the role of the police who are already investigating the issue. Now, my colleagues have tried to make the issue a motive by saying that over 20 people went to arrest Dr. Monda. Now, again, our position is that he merely reported and the police went to arrest him. However, even assuming 20 people went to arrest, and we are saying we don't know how many people went to arrest, but even assuming 20 people went to arrest, is the issue the number of people who went to arrest, or whether there is a culpable offense, whether the police were entitled or at a legitimate reason to effect the arrest. So that the issue of the number of people, the issue of the summons for a guy is really relevant. It doesn't change anything. What matters is whether or not Dr. Monda was right to have reported and whether the police were acting within the scope of their duties in effecting the arrest. Then, Mr. Speaker, the County Assembly then on the 21st of February 2024 resolved that before they determine the impeachment of the deputy governor, they should go for public participation. They went for public participation, and one of the results of public participation was a memorandum written by one Benson. That Benson then brings a memorandum accusing Dr. Monda of some excesses. Mr. Speaker, sir, I request for your direction. Your assistant is threatening me with 15 minutes. My conscience, I'm aware that my colleagues used over 1 hour. I would only pray for, because I'm here to address the issue of the preliminary, the issue of the expansion, expunging some documents. I just pray for equal timeline, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Council,
I promise to be
Council,
responsible
that is
on
not
time.
a threat. That wasn't a threat. Indeed, you have 15 minutes. If you're not done within those 15 minutes, then you can make your plea, and I will direct when we get there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would request the honorable senators to look at the document filed by the deputy governor, and it is marked DG in blue. And if you look at page 56, Page 56 contains the only document we received from that public participation, being a memorandum written by one Benson Nyakaka Misario, saying that the deputy governor should be retired from his office for various reasons, which in general amount to abuse of office. That memorandum was part of the invite for public participation, because public participation said you can bring written representation or oral representation. And so the document then was delivered to the speaker, as you can see on the face of it at page 56, and to the clerk, as you can see at that same page 56. It is then copied and delivered to the governor. And in consequence, therefore, when the governor went to the county assembly, he defended himself on the 5 counts that I have just gone through, plus the issues of the abuse of office. And so when my colleagues say you should expand the contents of paragraph 48 to 49, my colleague Ndegwa said that 48 to 49, and the reason is because it is a new material that was not part of the charge, then it poses the question, what was the intention of the public participation and what were we to do with it? Because that's the earliest we had notice of is when it was served on us, and we knew that is an issue we had to respond to, and therefore we did a response to it. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like then, and then therefore we have responded to it from that paragraph 48 to the last paragraph. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, that then creates the link between our factual response to and we have factually responded to all the things that Mr. Nyakaka has raised. And our main defense is that these are not issues we are responsible for. It is more of in the hands of the chief executive, the governor himself. The question of a budget that had been passed by the assembly having been manipulated and changed after the assembly had passed. The issue of the Kisii County budget not having been utilized for the last over 18 months. The issue of the deputy governor's wife being the one who is actually in charge of the county. All those issues are accusations against the governor, and we had to respond to them. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, and honorable members of the Senate, when you go back to reflect on whether you will expand these paragraphs from paragraph 48, we request that you keep a clear mind about the dichotomy of this issue. If the reason for wanting to expand is that it was not part of the case at the county assembly, then that is wrong on the face of it, because it was part of the case. They went for public participation, we were served with this document, and so we had to come and respond to it. However, if their argument is that it is not part of the 5 grounds that Honorable Siocha moved when he was seeking impeachment, before then he asked for public participation, then that's a different issue. But we pray that you please do not expand them merely because, or rather on the ground that it was not part of the case at the county assembly. It indeed was part of the case at the county assembly, and you will see it on the face of the documents. Now, you've then been asked to remove those documents because they are not relevant. I would like to submit to you, Honorable Senators and Mr. Speaker, sir, that the question of whether those are relevant or not belongs to you. It doesn't belong to the judgment of the assembly. It's not the assembly who says, we went for public participation. We enjoy the parts where they say, remove the deputy governor because he disrespects the wife of the governor, because he has taken a bribe. We don't want this, we want this. It is not for them to choose what should eventually come to you. It is for you to determine whether or not they are relevant. And so I insist that you retain that paragraph 48 to the last and determine at the end of your whole process whether they are relevant or not. And nobody should take away your if I were in court, I would say your jurisdiction to determine the relevance of that and to apply it in the question of whether or not you agree with the motion for impeachment. Now, my colleague was very specific. He says that, for instance, at paragraph 61, there is reference to the wife and to the governor, and that those people are not here to defend themselves. And we are saying that's not the correct position. We are not here to discuss, we are not here to determine the status, the fate, and the situation of the governor and his wife. We are here merely to defend ourselves. We received a notice from Benson telling us for these grounds, the governor should additionally be impeached. And we just come here to say, no, you shouldn't impeach us for that reason, because these are our reasons. And if it were to be then the case that in our defense we are saying that it is not the deputy governor who is responsible for the changes in the budget, for non-use of the budget, and so on and so forth, if that is the case, that it is the governor, that's our defense. It is not intended to bring into issue the governor and his wife. It is only merely meant to persuade you that indeed that's not a ground upon which you should impeach the governor. We would therefore be asking you to determine the question of the place of the public participation in these proceedings, because that is actually a product of the public participation. And I would probably just want to mention one thing to you, that at page 41, in the public participation, if you look at page 41 of the, if you look at volume 1 of the Assembly's bundle, page 41, they have brought to you the product of the public participation, as they say. And this, what was said at Birongo Ward is something that appears in quite a number of other places where public participation occurred. Bullet number 2, it says this: the members also lamented that the deputy governor does not respect the county first lady, and therefore the MCA should be allowed to perform their duty of impeaching him. So that public participation that was initiated by county assembly in itself, in many places said, unless the deputy governor is prepared to go and kneel before the first lady, he should be impeached. And we are saying we are not under an obligation